I'm owner of our services where I help companies optimize their marketing strategies. And earlier this year, Everett and I have gone through a certification program for B.A.N.K, and we are both now certified B.A.N.K iOS coaches, which is part of what we talk about through our communication styles. This is where it's all coming from through the B.A.N.K lens. So you'll hear more about it throughout the talk, but just wanted to give you a brief overview. And this is my lovely partner, EverettVass, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. So EverettVass, I'm with Orion Developments. I'm a coach, and been working with Julie on the B.A.N.K stuff. And tonight we're doing the second part in a series of 3 sessions that we have scheduled to focus on relationships and looking at relationships from the B.A.N.K perspective with the B.A.N.K lens. And so last week we looked into romantic relationships, and we had some great feedback from the people that watched that. We actually had 250 followers watch our program last week and got some great feedback. So thank you all for that. This week we're going to be looking at family and friends. Basically, again, through the lens of B.A.N.K, how does a personality type affect the relationship or the way that we act as individuals and interact with other individuals? Just to give you some background, Julie, for the feedback that we got. I mean, some of the very valuable points that were made in terms of communication, because we really focused a lot on communication, obviously. And, listening and speaking. So some of the points that were made that we got, like set aside time, think clearly about what you want to say and be clear when you're communicating, talk about how and why you feel the way you do, what you need and you want. And also accepting responsibility is very important in terms of that communication. Accepting responsibility and also active listening. We really we really emphasize that a lot. And just to follow up with some of the research that we had and was suggested to us, there was a study done by John Gottman, and he said the difference between couples, how well couples do, it comes down to 2 basic statistics he found in his study. One was healthy couples have a 5-to-1 ratio of compliments compared to negative comments. For every complaint, there are 5 positive interactions between a couple. A thank you, a please, I'm sorry, you're welcome, may I help you? Those, seem like they're, not that significant, but it turns out they make a big difference. And then the other one is healthy couples also respond to their spouses 9 out of every 10 times. So you don't have to be perfect. But they found in their statistics and the study that they did, that if a spouse responds 9 out of 10 times to their spouse and act significantly important in terms of the relationship and the quality of the relationship that couple has. So those were kind of some of the summary statistics and some of the things that we found out last week. This week, it's interesting because when we talk about friends and family, especially when it comes to friends, because we choose our friends. We oftentimes are attracted to people that are similar to us and that have similar interests and that kind of thing. We don't choose our family, but as it turns out, the research shows that we derive a lot of our meaning in life from our family. Our family is really the people that we communicate with the most. We create our world vision around that interaction with our family. So oftentimes, family, conflict is there are patterns that are repetitive and very predictable within a family environment. So the more aware you are and the better you are at articulating, in the family, what you want out of the relationship. Again, the better the outcome is in terms of the quality of a relationship. So we're seeing a consistent theme here, obviously, and that is communication. Communication being key. So what we thought we'd do this week in looking at the way that we interact with one another is to take it down to the level of, for the specific B.A.N.K types that we're dealing with, how is the most effective way to communicate? So communication tips, activity tips, and then we're going to look into some of our, the family-oriented. What are the sort of family type of activities and things like that that we could do to improve that relationship, especially when it comes to being a parent. Some of the parenting tips that people get hung up on, and so we're going to try to cut through a lot of that and help people understand what's important in terms of the communication with their family and their friends, and particularly looking at parenting as a communication in terms of communication. So do you want to get started, Julie?
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to say the communication we're speaking about too is basically surrounding being able to have empathic communication. Communicate in the way that people are designed to be communicated with, designed to be interacted with, versus the way that we would act or that we would want someone to speak to us and things that we would like to do. So it's being able to step into someone else's shoes and understanding that and being able to communicate to them effectively, which is beautiful. And like he mentioned too, with friends, there's a lot of things too. A lot of friendships tend to come together because you have common interests. But then over time, as things grow, sometimes they fall apart because those common interests and those values change. So then the friendships then end. And then as far as the parenting, which we're going to get to at the end of this, which I feel very passionately about, just, being able to parent the child that you have versus the child you wish you had, right? And actually really, really learning to understand who your kids are and how to communicate to them. If you have one parenting style and you're talking to all three of your kids in the same way, it's not going to resonate with everyone, but we'll get into that here shortly. So what we want to do tonight is that we want to provide with you as much real life examples as we can so that you can understand the impact this can make. And so we're going to go through each personality type and kind of give you some pointers of what they like, what they don't like, how to communicate with them, the type of activities to do to them, how to parent them. And those 4 types, in case this is the first time tuning in with us, is B.A.N.K. The B.A.N.K is the acronym for the 4 personality types. So you have B for blueprint, A for action, and K for knowledge. And we lead with one type, but we are a combination of all types. So that's for a later video. But right now, tonight, we're going to be focusing on what we lead with and how to communicate effectively with each type. So we're going to start with blueprint. Did you want to start with that one, Everett, or do you want me to?
Yeah,
to start?
I just had one other point that I wanted to make is that talk and communication really contributes to the intimacy of a relationship, no matter if it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or a parenting relationship, because it provides symbolic evidence of the connection while strengthening that connection. So there really is a lot to be said for communication when it comes down to it. And yes, I'd like to start with, if you would please, Julie, take us through the blueprint type and basically the communication tips that we've gleaned from the course and the training and the certification that we did in B.A.N.K. So that would be great. Yes, please. Perfect.
So blueprint are going to be the kind of person that's very structured, very scheduled, likes stability, is typically on a budget, but they're very into tradition, things like that, right? So we all have one of those in our life. My best friend is blueprint. My sister is also blueprint. And so I see that a lot. So when you're talking to a blueprint, what you want to do is you want to make sure that, number one, they're very, very sticklers on time. So number one, you want to make sure that you're never late. To them, being 15 minutes early is, on time, or even that could be considered late. But if you're showing up on time, for them, that's late. If you're showing up late, that's, you've lost all credibility completely. So you always want to make sure that what you're scheduling and what you're telling them that you're going to make plans or do anything like that, that you want to make sure that you emphasize the fact that you will be there at their scheduled time, right? Now, the one thing too is because they're very structured and they focus on facts a lot, right? So you want to make sure that when you're speaking with them that you're not exaggerating things, right? If you're trying to talk up and beyond of like what a situation is, you're going to lose them completely, right? Because they're going to see straight through that. And then they're also going to be the least likely to do anything last minute or to make like a very quick decision, right? They have to think things through, and they don't like surprises. They want to avoid risk at all costs. So when you talk to them, you want to always make sure that you focus on the truth and the facts, because they will call you out on that. My sister, my best friend, both of them, I consider my reality checks, right? But I always talk to them about exactly like how the situation is. I don't fluff it up. I don't exaggerate. I don't try to make something out of nothing. I always like focus on what the story actually is. They're big on plans, big on plans. So you want to plan things and you want to like stick to that schedule. My sister goes to, I love her to death, by the way. My sister and her family go to Disney usually every year. This year, not so much. It's a little different. But she will plan her entire trip like almost to the minute. But I mean, they have a strict plan of like where they're going, a schedule. And so I'm very spontaneous in nature, but there's no like, hey, I'm in town, or hey, I came to visit. You know, like I have to be aware of the schedule that she's and to respect it. And so I do. And that way then I'm able to get a slot in the schedule to spend time with her and her beautiful daughters, which I absolutely love to have. And that's
so I think if we were to summarize, I think for a blueprint, predictability is paramount. It really is about predictability. No surprises.
No,
right?
None whatsoever. Yeah, we definitely want to avoid that at all costs.
And so the next type that we're going to look at in the communication tips for them are the actions. And, actions are very much about, making it happen, being the movers and the shakers. So they like to be noticed. I mean, what you want to do is notice and compliment an action on, the way they look, their style. It's very important to them. They don't like to have to wait for anything. It's very spontaneous, sort of instantaneous gratification. But the good news is with an action, they're the most likely type to actually make a decision quickly. They can make immediate decisions. But as a result, it can happen that they get bored quickly. So you have to be mindful of that. You also have to, really reach out and ask what they're passionate about, so you can help them and share their passion with them. So that's another big one. And you kind of have to skip the small talk, just go straight to the point, get straight to the bottom line. My daughter is very much like this because she doesn't like the small talk. She doesn't like to have to worry about hyperbole. She just wants to know exactly where we stand. So she's in action. And then make sure that you're paying enough attention and create attention around them in your world so that they can feel, very much put in evidence and being valued that way. So those are my tips on actions. Do you want to tell us about nurturing? Because we know a little bit about nurturers, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. Before I get to that, though, I do want to point out. So I have a client who's action, and I realize that when I come with him, if we're talking like a serious subject, and I'm talking to him straight facts and like, hey, this is what we need to get done, I completely lose him. But if I'm coming at him like excited, like, hey, this is what we're working on, like this is what we need to get done this week, like just in that small change in the way that I speak to him, and then I speak about like the same topics. It could be the same list, but I'm just making it like more lively, more exciting. And I'm focusing on like the end goal of like, bringing him up and building his following and things like that. So I've noticed such a huge difference in that. So definitely take these communication tips to every conversation you have with an action. And so as Everett mentioned, we're both very knowledgeable and nurturing. So if you see next to our names, we have codes NKAB. This is part of why Ever and I get along so well, because we're the exact same personality code. But we lead with nurturers. So nurturers are the warm, fuzzy, want to hug you. We're all about relationships and authentic connections and helping people out. Like, that's what we want to do, which is part of what drew us to this program as well, because we see the impact this can make on so many people and so many families and so many businesses too, which you'll learn about next week. But there's just so much that you could do. So communication tips for us. Make sure that you make contact. So we're all about authentic, genuine connections, right? So when you're talking to us, maintain that eye contact. I have done that so much in my life that I can't read lips ever. I mean, if I tried, if my life depended on it, I can't read lips, because I always look into someone's eyes and I expect that connection, right? That's how, to me, like, that's how we're going to connect the most effectively. The other thing is that to be authentic. So it's very important to stick to your word. If you're going to say you're going to do something, definitely follow through, because we see it in a way that we would do, right? So if I tell you I'm going to do something, 100% it's going to happen. And we expect the same in return, because again, it's that genuine connection. That's what we thrive on, for sure. And so a lot of the things that we're going to do, and a lot of the communication tips for us, is to make sure that that you're going to include us in the conversation, right? To always be honest, for sure. Like I said, make sure you stay true to your word, and be emotional. Like, some of the best connections that I've had have been people telling me their life stories. One of my very good friends is definitely not a nurturer, and she always tells me not to make eye contact with people, because I attract people that want to connect and that really need someone to listen to them. And I genuinely will. I'll be in the moment. It's even happened sometimes where I've picked up on someone's accent because I'm so in tune and I'm paying attention to what they're doing. I end up imitating, but not on purpose, the accent which they're speaking to me. So make sure that you listen. I can definitely right away, if someone's tuned out or if they're listening to me to speak instead of to really hear what I'm saying, which then makes me not want to talk to that person at all. So definitely make sure that when you're with someone who's a nurturer like us, that your communication is authentic, it's genuine. I mean, we'll be the biggest forgivers in the world, even if it's something that you've messed up on, or whatever the case is. But if you're honest and you're upfront and you tell us, I mean, that makes the whole world of difference. And that's what we love about people in general. And then there's knowledge, which is our second code, which we also both know about. You can go ahead with the knowledge tips.
Yeah, we've talked extensively about how the knowledge and the nurture sometimes are in conflict within our own self. But I think with the relationships that I've had over the course of my life with knowledge people who, because I studied computer science in my undergraduate degree and worked with a lot of computer engineers and did computer engineering and so forth. So that's a very sort of knowledge-oriented field, and made had relationships and made friendships with a lot of people with that kind of background and that kind of personality type. The things that you have to watch out for, the tips that I would give for knowledge types are really, you got to be careful, because they will shut down when things get emotional. If things get too emotional, which I can be very enthusiastic and very exuberant and very emotional, but that will cause a knowledge to shut down. They're not interested anymore. They don't want to deal with that at all. And then also you need to include a great deal of detail and accuracy in any explanation that you give. It's got to be factual. It's got to be right on, so that there's no room for interpretation or vague, vagueness. It's black and white, basically. And you need to give the knowledge. The knowledge really takes the longest to make any decisions, because they want to research and they want to learn. They want to, get all the information that they need to be able to make a decision effectively. So that's an important part of it as well, is that you need to give a knowledge time, to make a decision. And you need to be able to talk intelligently and actually defend or, know your stuff, basically. You've got to be able to speak eloquently, to speak factually, and speak knowledgeably about the subject that you're putting in front of a knowledge. And if you're helping them, again, if you're looking to help them, be extremely precise and with the instructions, and allow them to ask questions if they don't fully understand where you're coming from. So them being able to process this includes, asking questions, assimilating knowledge, and being able to lay out a plan in terms of how they're going to use this information. And then I would say give them time and space to do their research, to do their thinking, and whatever is important to them. So you have to give them a lot of space and a lot of leeway when it comes to making decisions and communicating. Those are the ones that I had. Did you have any others? Julie, that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, well, just actually an affirmation for what you said, because like the very first thing you said was like the knowledge person will shut down if you get emotional. So I'm nurture. We already covered that. I'm very emotional. That's how I run. My son is knowledge. So all of these times that I get emotional in any kind of confrontation we've had, any discussion, any argument, I like physically seen him shut down.
Yeah.
We're having questions called in. No, I'm just kidding.
We got the hotline.
That would be amazing if we worked that out. But no, I mean, I've like physically seen him shut down, and like, and to me, that in the past, that's brought out more emotion. Like, why aren't you reacting? Like, what's happening? But after like finding out and learning more about like, a high knowledge person, I'm like, I totally understand. It makes so much sense now, because that's like the first trigger. As soon as I get the emotions out, he's like, nope, I'm gone. I'm not listening or anything. So it's a huge help. See, and that's like something like after the fact, I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. But in the moment, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So yes, I realize he's always been like extremely intelligent and always like looking to research and facts, and he's very intellectual, wants to like learn things and build things, So I knew that, but I didn't understand what that would mean like on the communication level. So just that little tip has saved so many arguments. And so we're pretty much as frictionless as we can be, because now I know I just present facts. I give him time to process it. I let him ask the questions. I try not to say like, hey, just do this because that's never going to resonate with him either. Like, it has to make logical sense. So I hope you guys are understanding the value that this could bring just by understanding that that's all we're asking you, is to open your mind and see the possibilities of what it is like to step into someone's shoes and to talk to them in that way, and the impact that it could make, which is beautiful. And then we have. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I was just going to start to lead into, like when you want to take someone out and different things that you could be doing with the different types. So if you have more to add on knowledge, by all means.
No, that's fine. I think we should move on. So the next section that we're going to tackle, with the personality types of B.A.N.K, are the sort of proposed activities that we can suggest for these personality types that they would feel most comfortable with, or at least least threatened by, if that's what it comes down to. And then so I'll start with the blueprint again, because it is so opposite of who I am. Blueprint in both my case and Julie's case is the last type in our personality profile. So it is the least important, but for a blueprint, things like being able to plan things in advance. If you're doing any activity, to be able to plan in advance is critical. And the more notice you can give, the better. and make sure that if you do make plans, that you keep your commitment. Unless it's unavoidable, but you cannot just take a casual sort of a casual stance when it comes to making plans. You've got to commit to plans. You've got to plan them out. You've got to say exactly, what date, what time. All of those things are important to a blueprint. And then it's also never to show up late never to be to an appointment with a blueprint, because they're thinking that on time is like 15 minutes in advance. If you arrive 5 minutes late, that's detrimental to the relationship with a blueprint. They feel that you've let them down, or you've missed out on that commitment that they understood to be when you made the appointment. And then also another thing is, in terms of planning, it's also about putting things on the calendar, so that when you're planning these things, make sure that they're officially placed on a calendar that you can share, or at least demonstrate that this is important, and that this has been planned, and a time and a date has been officially set for those. Is there anything else, Julia, you can think of?
Well, I was going to say too, I think the whole part about being late to a blueprint, it's like it's not respecting their time, right? And that's how they see it. Right. To them, that's something that they value highly. And the fact that if you are not considerate enough to be there on time and to make them wait, then that shows that you don't respect them as much as they may have believed that you respected them, right? And about the planning in advance, like I said, my sister and my best friend are both blueprint, and they will both call me way before I am ready and ask me what my holiday plans are. Or, my sister will call me in February, hey, what are you doing in December? Which, I'm so not a planner. So my answer is always I have no idea. And then my best friend comes to visit me around December a couple times throughout the year too. And so he'll call me, a couple months in advance, hey, what are you doing on this date? I'm like, I don't know. Just come, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm doing next week, let alone in 6 months, right?
I don't know what's going on tomorrow. Never mind next week. So yeah, so it is funny though, how two people closest to me are definitely planners, and I'm not.
I also have family members that are that way as well, and it's always interesting. So, it is a matter of compromise. And the other thing that comes up is that we're all familiar with the golden rule that we say do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but that's really not what it's all about. It's the platinum rule. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Way, let them be treated the way they want to be treated, not the way you would want to be treated. So it's a matter of sort of getting out of yourself and understanding where the other person is coming from. And that's what the beauty of B.A.N.K is, that it just puts that all in focus. It really helps to drive that point. And that's one of the things, of course, through the certification and the work that we did was one of the greatest reminders, I would say. It's a lesson, but it's certainly a reminder.
Yeah, for sure.
So what about actions? What are the activities that you think actions would like to engage in?
So actions will be completely opposite from a blueprint. So an action, you want to show up. And spontaneous adventures, spontaneous road trips, they're definitely the ones that are going to go for that, and they're going to absolutely love it. And they're also going to worry about, you want to dress to impress, right? So they want to be the best of the best. It's kind of how they view their values, and so you always want to dress to impress. And I have noticed that that's also made a difference. I have my an action client who. Especially when we started all these Zoom calls, he's showing up with my hair is naturally curly. And so sometimes it looks a little crazy on camera, a little crazier than it does in person. And without even thinking of it, I was just jumping on the Zoom call, thinking of planning. And it's funny because the first day that I decided to put myself a little bit more together, he made a comment hey, you look good today. And I was it really does make a difference. It's how you present yourself, right? Which we should do that all day, every day anyway. But it's that much more important when you're dealing with an action. So they do like to be wined and dined. You're going to want, if
Yeah.
you take them out to a restaurant, fancy restaurants, expensive gifts, that's definitely going to be their thing. Adventures, games, they're very competitive, right? Again, they want to be the best of the best. If you would take them anywhere where there's like a competitive nature, I mean, I think I'm a little action when I think about it, of all the things that I would like to do. But yeah, so anything that they have to compete to win, you've definitely got their attention. So this is all great, guys, for, you know, family, friends, for your kids. Like, these are all things to just consider, like things that you could do for each person, but you see how different each one is so far, right? And how much or how simple it could be to just make that slight shift, to just apply these things to the person that you're taking out, to the person that you want to hang out with, to your child. You know, it's so different. And so, I mean, yeah, well, we'll go into nurture and you'll see how much more different that is. Do you have any stories or anything to add to action, Everett?
No, yeah, well, actually, you know, as I've said before, my action was much more pronounced when I was younger. So it was more about that sort of, you know, flash and achieving, you know, bigger, better, more, all that kind of, you know, going after the gold ring kind of thing, because that's what I thought was important. And through greater sort of, I would say, you know, greater discernment, I found my balance to be more in terms of knowledge, and wanting to know and taking the time before I expend energy where I should, you know, where I should spend my energy. So it is kind of an interesting. I still feel like I'm sometimes on the, you know, on that sort of between the two type of personalities. So that's interesting. So what's interesting and what's important to remind yourself with nurtures is that it comes from the heart. It's heart driven, it's heartfelt, and so communicating, it's important that it be focused on that, the emotions that it generates and how you feel, not so much how you think. So, for example, being able to make someone feel special through some kind of, you know, thoughtful gesture, or, you know, handwritten note, or it has meaning. You know, it really has meaning from the heart. So planning activities like that around those types of things. Planning an entire spa day is something that nurture. They want to, you know, special. They want to be pampered and taken care of, and known that they are being cared for, because nurturers spend a lot of time caring, and so it's extra special for them to receive caring. You know, as long as they are willing and able to do that. And myself personally, this is where, as a nurturer, what I enjoy is when someone will, you know, cook a special meal. Someone will think about what they're going to prepare and create a special meal, which is essentially an experience of love. Because is there anything more nurturing than actually taking in food? And so we feel nurtured by someone preparing a special meal for us. That is something that we enjoy as nurturers. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I'd add to that too is like the you know, to make it special, like I would love to just spend, you know, good quality time with like a small group of friends any day than doing anything, you know, outside of that, or going somewhere, for example. Like, just again, I mean, I thrive on connecting with people, and, you know, connecting with people in the best way is just to you know, to get together and hang out and just have like deep conversations, and, you know, really get to feel where we are. So I do love that.
Yeah. The greatest reward is the intimacy that you feel. It really is that connection.
Yeah. And I so miss it with COVID and everything going on. Like, you know, I miss just being able to like see people and just to be with someone. A video is one thing. I mean, you get to see facial expressions, you know, you can get to like a small sense of the person. Hi, Joanne. Thanks for tuning in. I saw in the comments. And so we definitely sense that, but there's nothing that beats like that human connection as a nurturer. And I mean, I'm an extrovert as well. So, it's a double whammy with quarantine. So hopefully we'll get back to some sense of being able to do things in person here soon. We'll see.
I hope so too. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So, and lastly, if you want to tell us a little bit of background in terms of the knowledge and the activities and what we can do with the knowledge types.
Right. So as we covered before, knowledge person is going to be someone who research facts, who likes logic, who likes science and tech. So when you're doing things with a knowledge person, they're going to want to do things that are more intellectual, like museums, historical sites, places where you can like learn new things, and just explore, right? But then on the other side of it too is you want to have the ability to have like those deep discussions as well. So even like finding similar books that you're into and being able to talk to those books, or hanging out with like-minded people. So if you go to like an art gallery, and they're into art, and they're able to have discussions with people that are also interested in those same fields. So it definitely makes so much sense. It's funny, like I took my son to DC in December, and we've gone through the National Mall multiple times. We've been there, we've seen some of the exhibits, but he loved, most importantly this time, like he was studying the architecture, just like looking at all the architecture, and we were like having discussions, imagining like what it was actually like created for and what the building was before it was a museum. And we had such a fun time, like just exploring like odd buildings, like just, taking a look at all of that. So it definitely, again, it's just knowing what they're into, and you can have a great time doing it. You just got to step into their shoes. So, if you ask a knowledge to, go surfing, are they going to be the person that want to go surfing? Maybe, if they're into it, but most likely not. But if you think of art galleries or any kind of like a convention, something, or a talk, a lecture, maybe they want to like learn about something, museums, just keep that in mind and just be open to trying out new things based off of what they're going to be into.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah. So the last segment that we're going to tackle here is on parenting tips, and I think it's significant that we treat this separately because it is a very special form of relationship. In fact, the sort of the relational culture that we develop in the family as parents provides a basis of shared reality. I think that helps, that definitely forms, forms personality, forms a lot of very, very, important aspects of human relationship and culture. So you and I are both parents that we've raised our children, and so we're going to go through, and as I mentioned, my daughter is more of an primarily action. And you mentioned that your son is more of a knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So why don't we take them? If you want to start one at a time, we'll go through the types, and if there are any sort of relevant parenting tips that you've gleaned from our experience with B.A.N.K.
For sure. And the one thing I want you guys to all keep in mind, if you're a parent, the biggest thing is that your kids are not all the same. Now, we all know that, right? Their personalities are different. And that's what we're talking about now, is that based off their personalities, there are different ways you can communicate with them, different ways that you can teach them, different ways that you can apply rules, right, to the different types that will resonate better with each type. So, for example, like as a blueprint, you want to keep them on a schedule and a routine, and you want to stick to it, right? If you make a plan and you're running late for any reason, you want to call your child, let them know you're running late. If there's any kind of like change in the plan, you want to let them know the change and why, right? It's about that respect for what they value and how how they need to be instructed, right? And you also want to have like that structure and chores, right? So you do, dishes on Monday and garbage on Tuesday and vacuum on Friday, whatever you're doing, but you want to make it so that it's consistent and something that they're structured, and that'll make them more in line with like listening and to actually cooperate with your instructions if you tell them accordingly. But again, those things are not going to resonate with each child. So you have to look like in, which we're going to talk about next week, but in sales, if you have like a sales pitch, one sales pitch to like a room full of people, it's not going to resonate with every person in that room. You have to customize your presentation. This also applies to parenting. Like you have to consider speaking to them in the way that they're meant to be spoken to. I'll keep repeating that until it sinks in.
Oh, yeah. And sort of, I'll do the next two if you want to. We'll save the knowledge for you, given that you're a parent of a knowledge type. And so my relationship with my daughter and my role as a parent, as it unfolded, what I realized was that she really appreciated things that were spontaneous. So we used a lot of energy around sort of creativity and creating activities that were spontaneous. Doing things at the last minute, just to make it kind of exciting and not too sort of predictable. I mean, that's the idea. And then I also encouraged my daughter to play sports. She was a very good volleyball player, through high school and starting in college. So playing sports, because it's a very sort of kinesthetic activity, and actions are normally very kinesthetic. At least moving is a big part of their type. So having that satisfied. And I also encouraged my daughter to host gatherings and be sort of like the central the social hub within our neighborhood. So we had her friends coming over to our house, and they felt safe there. It was a fun environment. So it really helped my daughter fulfill her sort of ambition or her needs as an action as well. And then ultimately, I think celebrating their successes, making sure you emphasize to your child their success, and you underline that in terms of their accomplishment, because that does a lot to raise self-confidence and their ability to not shy away from challenges and
Right.
other activities.
And to celebrate the small wins too, not just the big wins, right? The little things in between as well. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and make them feel like no, not at all. The only other thing I was going to add was sort of make them feel like the hero. I did, the last posting I did on Facebook for my daughter for, National Daughters Day, that was like last week. I told her how proud I was of her, and that she was in fact my hero, because she got through some really tough times in her life, and she was able to get through it because she was so well adjusted. I'm just amazed. I continue to be amazed by her. So moving on to our nurturing type for parenting purposes, I think nurturers are affected by strong emotions and loud noises as well. So keeping control of your voice, speaking softly and acting gently, not being the hard, firm, mean type, but being much more gentle. And that's one of the things that I learned with my daughter, which was made it much easier, and made my role more effective as a parent to help her. And taking time to articulate and communicate in a loving way, sort of grounding it in love, again, for the purposes of communication, the intent behind it, is love, is to help them, get through whatever, the situation that they're in. I've also kept in a storage locker all my daughter's childhood memorabilia. So I've got bins filled with art projects and things that she worked in school, and a lot of things that she'll probably never look at again, but for some reason I I felt it was important to keep and to have it as a keepsake for her. And then lastly, I think planning activities together that put into evidence the family. Taking a lot of pictures so that there's a visual record of that. That's also very important to nurturing types. And it gives them a real sense of grounding in terms of the family, in terms of the rituals of the family, in terms of the importance of connection with the family. So those are all things that I would suggest as tips for parenting to a nurturer.
Definitely, and that's probably how you want it to be you want it to be parented. That's what I was trying to say. And saving all the memorabilia, same thing. Yeah, like having those emotional memories and the ways that connect. It's funny too, because I think of the times when my parents would have scolded me and had they sat down and talked more maybe lovingly and instead of your typical parent moment, right, where you scold your child. We all do it. Then I wonder if it would have made a difference or made an impact at that moment, but we'll never know.
Yeah.
We'll never know. So in the knowledge, which is what's helped me out too. So my son is knowledge, or he leads with knowledge. Doesn't like to be put into a box. So, but I have noticed that, his whole life, he's been very, very, very intelligent. Always has been. I remember when he was younger, oh my gosh, look what he could do. Look at the math. Look at the music. He can identify. I was always kind of putting him up on a pedestal for those intellectual gifts that he had. But you got to remember, if your child's in knowledge, you also have to reward them. Not reward them, but celebrate the small wins as well, right? The things that are not necessarily because of their intelligence, but things that they've done well, or activities that they've done well, things like that as well, which I realized that I missed out on a lot because I was always so focused on celebrating all of his intellectual wins. So definitely keep that in mind. They are very smart, so they are very much into reading. My son was obsessed with reading for a very long time. Now it's YouTube videos about one topic or another, or a game to understand and identify what's going on in a game. So you want to make sure that you socialize them, right? Get them involved in team sports and things like that, because it is so easy for them to internalize and to be stuck in that research and learn mode, that it's really good to put them in activities where they can socialize with other people and do things that are smart. My son was in martial arts. He loved martial arts. I put him in dance as well. So they were both fun activities, but they were both activities that you needed to, remember your moves, remember your steps. So it was learning at the same time, right? Not necessarily just active, which helped a lot for sure. You do want to make sure you maintain a routine as well. So we struggled with this for a long time because he loved the gaming and things like that. The kids, like I said, will get stuck in the research, or my niece, for example, loves to read. She can get lost in a book for hours and hours and hours. So you do want to make sure that you put them in a routine so that they don't get so lost in that one activity that they love that they have a chance to try out different things. So you want to make sure that you balance that out, right? And it could be things that they still like. It could be some other learning activity or some other intellectual activity, but you do want to have them stick to that routine so that they don't get lost in that moment, because they will. If I leave him alone, he will find things to watch and learn, and my niece, same thing. She will read a book all day long and forget to eat, unless she's reminded. So it's things that you definitely want to keep them, keep that in check. And then also, to help them just, learn new things, give them those opportunities to learn new things, present as much as possible and let them try things. And that's one thing too, for any of the types that I'll say as a parent, We all want to provide like a better life for our kids, right? Something more that we've had or things that we wanted to try that we never got a chance to try. And we try to present all this stuff to our kids, and it's 100% fine to do that. But you have to listen to your child. If you put them into an activity and they genuinely don't enjoy it, you have to find something else. You move on to the next thing. But like to force a child to try something new, and of course, kids will be kids, and sometimes, yes, they're not going to be motivated to try out different things. But if you find the right thing, we've given you an example of things. If you find the right thing that they're interested in, that they value, then it's going to be easier to do that. But as parents, I'm at fault of this too. For the longest time, like he loved dance in the beginning, and at the end, I was like, no, you committed, you've been in this so long, and like I forced him to the point where he was like miserable, and it took some like self-reflection, and I was like, you know what, I wish I would have been in dance like that. Like I love the environment, I love watching the creation of all of these dances and these beautiful performances that they put together from like the beginning, and I love that. And I realized that like I was pushing him more for what I wanted to be a part of versus, and what I wanted him to be a part of, and the possibilities, because he was an amazing dancer. But I had to step back and realize, what, that's not something that he's interested. That's not what he wants to do. And to force him to do something that he doesn't like, then yeah, that makes him miserable. And like, who wants to deal with that? There's no reason to. So long story short, parents, listen to your kids. Just listen to them. They'll tell you what you need to know. We just have to listen with open ears.
Definitely. And I learned that lesson as well with my daughter, wanting her to be exposed to music. She had guitar lessons and piano lessons and all. And in the end, she wasn't that interested. She wanted to do other things. And so I just had to step back. Eventually, she did take up the trumpet like her old man, and she played the trumpet through junior high school. And then she told me at the end of junior high school, I can't play the trumpet anymore because it means going into band, marching band. And that's not cool. That was just not cool for her.
It's not action. It's not action time at all.
Yeah. So, I think that, again, this sort of the platinum rule of, treating people as they want to be treated is the message here. And demonstrating that you value them, whether it's your friend, your spouse, your child, you value them through the communication that you have with compassion, with interest, on their terms, in their terms, speaking their language, what best suits them, that we have to sort of modify our approach in order to communicate more effectively with the ones we care about. And so it is an act of caring. It is an act of, wanting to do something better, because the effectiveness and the end result will be an improved relationship and improved communication. So that's what it comes down to.
Exactly. And that can just only make things better. It can't make it worse. And the more you realize that, and the more that those relationships around you are better and happier, then the happier you're going to be as well. There's going to be less friction, less tension. You can just be, and you can just be mindful and enjoy the moment as you're in them, versus having to, manage situations, for lack of a better term.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think we're coming up on our hour. Do we want to talk a little bit about what's in store for next week at this point?
Yes. So I hope you guys are all getting value from this. If you're catching it on the replay, put #replay in the comments so we know that you checked us out. But so far we've covered your intimate relationships, and we've covered today family and friends. And next week we're going to be talking about your professional relationships, and how you can, by changing the way that you communicate with your coworkers, with your clients and your customers, how quickly you can raise your profits by 300%. Give you that for a little hook. But we'll tell you all about exactly how that works next week. But it's along the same lines. It's about understanding who you're talking to and speaking to them. And again, it's my most favorite saying of this entire program is to speaking to people in the way that they're designed to be spoken to. You know, and if you can do that, then your communication is that much more effective. So we'll give you examples next week on how it works in a professional standing and how it can help increase your income. And if you don't like the word sales either, it's going to help your yes influence as well to people. So convincing someone else to do something that you want to do, or trying to convince your child to, eat their vegetable, it's all sales. But we'll help you.
And I think it's also important to note, Julie, that it all begins with better understanding of yourself and sort of what motivates you and being able to manage your interactions with other people. So if there is anyone out there interested in learning more about their bank code, as we mentioned, Julie, my bank code is NKAB, which stands for Nurture Knowledge Action Blueprint. If you want to figure out what your bank code is, or as we say, crack your code, just in the comments below here, just put code and we'll send you the link so that you can find out your bank code and anyone else that you want to share the link with, because they'll be able to crack their code too. And you can compare notes with friends and family, and even get your kids to do it.
Exactly.
So.
And
that's what we got for this week. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and when you receive the code, if you type in code in the comments and we send you a code, it's going to take you to a website where you're going to have virtual cards these are the cards. You're going to see them on, and you have to organize them in order in order of priority of what you value the most. And then you get a free assessment. So this is the link that you're going to get is Everett and I's codes. It's not going anywhere else. Your information is not going anywhere else. Strictly staying with us. So it's completely private. But you can send that, and then you can send that, like I said, like Everett said, to everyone that you know, to your friends, family, even if your clients, you want to figure out what they are too. So you'll get this detailed report that kind of like dives deep into who you are. And it'll help you put the pieces together of everything we're talking about, and hopefully you'll be able to see the beauty of it like we do.
It is comprehensive in the report, and it helps you to understand yourself, but also how you're interacting with other people and what may trigger you and where you run into problems, by triggering others and so forth. So there's a lot of a good understanding and comprehensiveness to be gained, and mostly compassion, for yourself and for others. Well, thank you, Julie. It's been a pleasure once again. I look forward to next week when we're going to talk about our professional relationships. So this has been great. Thank you.
Me too, and thank you everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions on this, like when you're watching this through, you can add the question in the comments. Everett and I will be monitoring the chat for the next couple days here. So if you have questions, ask us. If you want to know your code, put code in the comments. We'll send you the link. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Much appreciated. Everett, I love you. I will see you next week, sir.
All right. Take it to the bank. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.